Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about crypto and economics and lots of other fun things. In today's video, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin for the most part and Ethereum a little bit, and really that's it. Just to lay out a picture for what will hopefully be coming over the next few months. If you like this content, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment in the comment section, all for the algorithm. Sorry about the bots. The bots. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive on in. So this chart is courtesy of X user APSK32. And just to open up, just kind of this helps illustrate my mindset as to what I'm expecting for the rest of 2025. I know it's not going to be exactly like this, but it's just looking at things right now. And right now, August, September, I'm like, oh man, there's a lot we're going to have to navigate through. So we have on Friday the Jackson Hole speech. You know, the Fed, they meet in Jackson Hole every August. Jerome Powell, I'm sure, is going to get up and speak. And what's he going to say? You know, I would tend to think that even though the Fed is most likely going to cut rates in September, that he's going to, especially on the heels of that last PPI report, come out and speak in hawkish terms. You know, that he's going to talk with a lot of caution, and that might send people a little bit more nervous when it comes to risk on activity. But I do wonder, I do think that even the market has priced in, what am I thinking here? Just this in anticipation of a hawkish Jerome Powell. So we'll see how that goes after that. But I mean, that's just one of those things. It's like after that, we have the next month's unemployment report coming the first Friday of September. And last month's unemployment report was really bad. And okay, so if the next unemployment report is bad, yes, that would incentivize the Fed to cut rates, but it's signs of an unhealthy economy. And if the Fed's going to cut rates into unhealth, that is not a good sign for risk on assets. Okay, what do we have after that? We have the next CPI report coming the second week of September, and the next PPI report coming 2 days after that. And right, last month's CPI report was good, just last week, and the crypto market rallied, stock market rallied, Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. It looked like Ethereum was going to hit a new all-time high, and then 2 days later, the PPI report threw some water on that fire for sure, with a very high, unexpectedly high report. And so we have those four things. We have earnings coming up. We have just a lot of things, manufacturing. A lot of these reports are going to be a lot more important than recently. And then the Fed is most likely going to cut rates in September. So what happens after they cut rates? Well, let's look at this Bitcoin power curve. This is why I'm even bringing this up. So you can see what happens, the mean here, the power curve cycle cloud. We have the 4-year cycles minimum and maximum, but then look at the mean. So 4-year cycles mean in October, what happens with the price of Bitcoin is it usually goes vertical. And I do expect something like that to happen in October. I just know living through it day to day is rough. And every day in my live stream, it's like the anxiety. It's off the charts. It's insane. It's really difficult to deal with on a daily basis. But, and so then I'm looking out at the next, 5-6 weeks. And yeah, I'm not too excited about the next 5-6 weeks. Now, who knows? You never know. But after that, we have October, what has happened, worst case, the worst run, the best run, and then the mean. It's been pretty exciting times. So I'm expecting something similar to happen this time around after we navigate through some difficulty. Something from someone here named Jelly. I've never heard of this person, but Bitcoin cycles have historically moved in a predictable rhythm. 1,064 days of expansion with the most gains taking place in the final 30 to 60 days of the cycle. That window kicks off again next week. All right, so I have seen, 1,064 days from the halving. Well, the halving does move up a little bit every year, and so that would kick off next week. Now, again, I'm not expecting, I would say like those first 30 days are not going to be like blow off top crazy, but maybe the next 30 days after that. Ready for the season finale. So what do we see? We see deep pockets of accumulation followed by some expansion. Expansion in 2017 was to the tune of 1,800%. In 2021, it was to the tune of 264%. So far, it's been 80%. with the spot Bitcoin ETFs, which means that you can see diminishing returns here, but now that we have the ETFs, it may be not quite as diminishing as what we saw in 2021. So what's the 60-day mark? It's October 27th of 2025. Maybe there's some vertical to happen here. I think so for Bitcoin. Moving on, we have Frank here. First time I ever talked about this guy's information was yesterday, in yesterday's video. Traders will be watching how Bitcoin interacts with the middle Bollinger Band, which is viewed as a trend indicator and currently sits at 117K. I'm watching the lower band at 111K. A test of that level would increase my confidence that the market is oversold. You can see Bollingers. I need to pay attention to Bollinger. We should all pay attention to Bollingers more, because on the daily chart, especially when volatility is low like right now, the Bollingers are going to do well in terms of acting as support or resistance. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is in yesterday's video, I talked about potentially $112,300 being the bottom for Bitcoin. And looking at Bitcoin now, it's at $113,000. It's been struggling. It got up to almost $115,000. Got rejected at the 7-year trend line. That doesn't really mean much to me. But okay, this daily Bollinger, I do think that Bitcoin will at some point between now and the rate cut get above $110,000, and that may be a very scary moment, but I think that's going to be a good level to enter. But this daily Bollinger is around 111,000, and the 100-day simple moving average is also at $111,000. And so here's what I'm wondering. What if we got there? And what if, on the RSI, we had a bullish divergence where, yes, we did go lower than $112,300, but we put in a higher low in Bitcoin's RSI. I'd be pretty excited about that, because that would be a bullish divergence, and that would be a much better signal than just the RSI at 40, which I talked about yesterday being a key level to hold. Just the RSI at 40. This is an even better indication that we have bottomed. So that's what I'm kind of looking for with that. Let's move on to Alfractal. Really interesting here. I never really would have thought of this. The more money China prints, the higher Bitcoin tends to rise. When China's M2 money supply outpaces the US M2, Bitcoin often sees bullish momentum. Another interesting pattern: when US M2 dominance falls, Bitcoin tends to climb. Plus, liquidity injections from the People's Bank of China are usually followed by a strong Bitcoin push weeks later. So, there's 4 charts here. The one that caught my interest was this USDT dominance, M2 dominance chart here. And you can see the spikes seem to be coinciding with dips in Bitcoin's price. The peak of US M2 dominance was in the bear market, the bottom of the bear market for Bitcoin. And then you can see we've just been kind of in a downtrend since then. And very interesting. So, maybe we shouldn't really care all that much about US M2 and just pay attention to China's M2 and see where that goes. And China has been printing a lot of money lately. Moving on, we have attention. All right, these next 2 charts are they're bull moon boy posts. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you about that. How can anyone looking at this chart think we are entering a Bitcoin bear market right now? Either this relationship is broken, or we are moving much higher. Rather, looks like an opportunity. So the US M2 chart again. Sorry, the Bitcoin global M2 chart. How many times? People are still talking about this thing. If we were following along perfectly, or even close to perfectly, we would have hit $140,000 in June or July. I don't remember. 130 in June, 140 in July. We didn't do that. We did hit 125,000 in August. I know. 123 in July. But okay, it seems like people are still trying to manipulate this to fit their narrative. And I do want to remind you. Do I think Bitcoin's going higher from here? Yes. Okay. Yes. But I want to remind you, something similar happened at the end of 2021, where M2 continued to rise and we deviated dramatically. And what was the kind of trigger for that deviation? It was an exceedingly hot CPI report. So we just had a hot PPI report. Now that doesn't mean that I think we're going to deviate from this, but it means that we need to not be married to this idea that, Bitcoin's going to go to $180,000 because M2 has gone up where it's gone. No, I don't buy that. All right, another thing. So you're telling me, Quentin Mega Bull, Mega Moon Boy, you're telling me 124 was the top, while 0 of the 30 bull market peak indicators have flashed. 0 out of 30. Okay, so we have Bitcoin, AHR 999 index, PUL multiple, Pi cycle, top indicated Bitcoin rainbow chart. Get out of here. That's not going to hit. That thing was invalidated a long time ago. But okay, 0 of the 30 peak indicators. And so I want to warn you about something. Whatever Bitcoin's peak is for this cycle, people are going to refer to this and they're going to be like, only one, or like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 1 or 2 of these peak indicators have hit. And that will be the peak. Because I'm telling you, there's a good chance the Pi cycle top indicator is not going to hit. There is in my opinion, like a 0% chance the rainbow chart is going to hit. I don't know. I've never paid attention to these peak indicators, but no, this is not something that I would give any credence to. But you're going to hear people talking about, well, only one of the indicators has hit, or only maybe 5, maybe only 5 of these indicators has hit. Hold on. And no, I mean, I'm going to hold on to my Bitcoin, but like, no, just get that out of your mind. Don't pay attention to people who say stuff like that. Now, okay, here's some hope for short term for Ethereum. All right, so sounds good to me. Not filled on this yet. Credible, very good trader, very reliable trader. Not filled on this yet, but this is the new setup I was eyeing that I monitored earlier. Sharing because I'm heading to bed shortly, blah, blah, blah. ETH moved a bit lower than expected, coinciding with Bitcoin dropping below the 114 to 116K region. We ended up taking the next cluster of liquidation below, tagging local demand, and now look to be attempting a reclaim of prior range lows. I think there's a decent chance we may get some relief across the board here shortly, and that push to range highs on ETH I was looking for earlier. We just need to hold this newly formed demand to kick things into gear. And so what's this? Okay, we have Ethereum. We have Ethereum filling some certain zones. It did go a little bit lower than what he thought, but it's okay. And now he's projecting Ethereum to go up to the prior all-time high. Who knows? Maybe over the next week or so. And so I know it would not be a straight line like what we're seeing here. But I expect that Ethereum has bottomed. So Bitcoin, as of the moment I'm making this video, is flirting. It's at 112.9, 112.3 was the bottom, but Ethereum got below $4,060, and currently it's a healthy amount higher than that. So Ethereum is beating Bitcoin when it comes to dominance right now. But this is kind of a projection. I don't know about time frames, but kind of a projection here. Remember last week I talked about Ethereum, that it may be that it will just barely break that all-time high, just barely, and then it's going to get flushed down pretty hard. I have a lot of confidence in that assessment. Maybe from there it would go down to 4,400, 4,300, something like that. And then over the next week or two, build up strength and then break through its all-time high and get to price discovery. That is my expectation for Ethereum. It may happen, perhaps, I don't know, as soon as next week that we would see Ethereum do that. That's my expectation. Whatever the case, I do think whenever the time comes that Ethereum would just barely break its all-time high, that this would happen, that it would get flushed out like that. So anyway, hold on tight. I know it's rough. I know all that stuff. Just there will be a time. But until then, don't take too big of risks, and generally accumulate. That's all I got for today. Hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of your week, a wonderful weekend. I will certainly be seeing you in another video. Peace.